And hello, good morning, good evening, Francis. How are you?
I'm doing well, Steve. How are you doing?
Excellent. It sounds like our audio is working. And if anyone's in the chat, yell at us if the audio stops working. Well, thank you for joining me here, Francis. And let me just switch back to that intro slide if I can figure this out. So, you are Francis Msangi, right?
Yes,
And
yes.
so, why don't you introduce yourself and explain just what you're doing with Microsoft Dynamics, a brief bio?
Okay. My name is Francis Msangi on YouTube Tech Msangi. I'm a Microsoft Dynamics 365 Business Central developer, and I've transitioned to Business Central from Dynamics Nav, which I started working with in back in 2017. And I have mostly been focusing on customizing Business Central for what we call them credit unions or financial institutions here in Kenya, and as well non-governmental institutions and NGOs. So I've been a developer for Business Central and as well integrations to Business Central, that is portals that connect to Business Central. Yeah.
Awesome. Thank you. That was some of the background that I was going to ask you about as well. And
Yeah.
um, so let me hop over to this. So I just listed a few things I thought we could talk about. And the first one was, how did you first encounter Business Central? Was there a particular
Uh,
project? Were you working for a consulting firm?
Okay, this is what happened. Let's speak of Navision. My first
Okay,
encounter was Navision, not Business Central per se.
got it.
Um, After campus, like the university, I was working with C Sharp classic web forms. So the
I know it
applications
well.
that I was, yeah, you know it well.
Yep.
Yeah, so the applications that I was building were just centered on the web-based applications, web forms, and MVC,
Okay.
ASP.NET MVC. And so my first job was in a company, Kotek Africa, which was now customizing Nav. It was amongst the first companies to bring Nav into Kenya, and I got employed there as a first of all, the position was for a developer. I didn't know that I'll end up doing Navision, or at that time it was Navision.
Okay.
And so it was my first time to hear about Navision in the company. So I'm like, welcome to this company. I was given the setup. That was Nav 2016 and SQL Server.
Wow.
Install this Navision, and then you can be able now to use it. Start learning about fixed assets, finance management. I'm like, oh my, I'm not an accountant. And
Wow.
yeah, after an intensive 3-month period, I found myself now a Navision developer. And once I started going to the field, I realized that it's heavily used. Yeah, that's how I encountered or I came into terms with Business Central through Navision, though.
Wow. So you just got thrown into it day one.
I got thrown into it.
Wow. And I mean, what was that like? It sounds like you hadn't worked with ERP systems before. So not only was it an ERP system, it was Navision, which has its all of its quirks and its, stuff you got to learn. And then you're having to install and customize. Like, what was that like? That must have been crazy.
Um, okay, the most interesting thing was, I was from the C Sharp background.
Yep.
When I heard that this is still a Microsoft product, it was easy for me to love it because at the same time I was using
Hmm.
SQL Server, C Sharp.
Yep.
I was connecting like C Sharp. We used SQL Server a lot.
Yep.
So uh, my let's say colleagues that the guys that we were employed with, they had a challenge. Some of them had not used SQL Server. For me, it was like, oh, I'm still using SQL Server.
Yep.
At least it was a plus because I'm not now learning another new DB. At that time, I had only heard of Oracle and SAP. So I'm
Yep.
like, okay, what is this dynamics now? And okay, at first, coming from the C Sharp background and PHP, because before C Sharp I was doing PHP, what got me interested was how fast I could build reports in Navision compared to other languages.
Yep.
If you use something like FPDF in PHP, just to create a table cell, that is a line of code. To do anything, to create small things, is you create a lot of code. So one of the first lessons that you are taught is how to create a report, because we needed to get started or start doing some report support requests. And it was so easy for me to create a report. You just map the data items and then you load it, and then you're able to generate your report. So it was
And
kind of more faster compared to the other.
and is this an like a Nav RDL report, or do you think the same thing about Business Central RDLC reports today?
How easy it is, or
Yes. Do you think it's easy to deal with a Business Central RDLC report to create or customize one?
a customized one? It's not kind of tough for me
Okay.
because I'm already used to the nav RDL report, and it's still, you just open
Okay.
externally and
We
you
need to
proceed.
talk because I don't know if you saw my tweet from
I
yesterday.
saw it.
Oh my
So
gosh. Okay.
before
We
answering
are
the
talking
question, I was
after
like,
this.
oh,
I
this guy
didn't know
would.
this. And okay, you're hired. I apologize for heaping some new suffering upon you, but we spent an hour last night. My developer and I have over 20, 30, 40 years of experience in .NET, SQL, report writing, everything in the conventional Microsoft Dev platform. We stared at this RDLC report saying, why did they do this? Why did they do that? What were like, we saw this elaborate pile of stuff and we're thinking, were they
Yeah.
brilliant or crazy? I don't know. And we still don't know. We figured out like how they did it, but we're like, oh my gosh, this is one of the scariest things we've seen. We were just in disbelief. So you're hired. Let's talk. Okay. So,
Yeah, we'll
okay.
speak
So
later.
you jumped into this. You were familiar with SQL Server. I totally
Yeah.
relate to that. Yep.
Yes.
And you started doing reports out of Nav. I mean, that's incredible. I mean, and
Yeah.
you just figured it out.
Yeah. It was easy because I had used I think RDL, no, SQL Server Report Builder, which is still RDL
Yep.
with C Sharp.
Yep.
So for me, creating the reports was easier. So the
Wow.
transition was quite smooth, and I was like, oh, let's just pick it up. It wasn't that tough, and that was among the first
Fantastic.
tasks that I had to do, was creating reports. So I just slid into it.
I bow to you, sir. You are a brave person. Well, that's very cool. And since then, you've worked with Nav and Business Central since that job.
Yes. Since then, since 2017, I've been on Nav and Business Central to date. Yes.
And has that always been? Have you always worked for a company that used it, or have you worked with consulting firms, or what roles did you have?
Mostly, okay, for us, we are, let's say, consultants. I'm a consultant at the same time because when you are handling support requests or any implementation, it's both combined, consulting and developing at the same time. Yeah, a
So,
mixture of both.
were
So
you
for the
in the
companies,
were you
uh,
an employee at this corporation, or did you
yes,
work for a
yes,
consult? Oh, okay, got it.
an employee, and the company has both. There is consultancy and developing
Ah,
and everything. So it depends on the task that is at hand. If it
got
involves
it.
consulting, then you go into consulting. If it involves customizing, then you're customizing. Yeah.
So your employer, were they a consulting firm, or were they just a corporation that happened to use Nav internally?
It's a developing firm, actually,
Oh,
a
okay,
system
okay, got it,
solution firm.
got it. So it
Yeah.
wasn't for their
Yes.
internal use.
Not for internal use.
Okay,
We are
got it,
supporting so many clients,
got
different
it.
clients. Yeah, to support
So
so many
you
clients. Yeah.
you went right into consulting and you got dropped right into Nav.
Yes,
Very
absolutely.
cool. Very
Yeah,
cool.
sure.
Okay. So I think that also, if I can find a button here, that also answered the question. You're more on the development focus side.
Yes, more on the development.
Okay, got it. But
Yeah,
obviously,
so for the
you
application, we work with functional consultants, hand in hand
excellent.
with functional consultants. Yeah.
Okay, and obviously, in my experience, you need to understand the ERP system. You need to know how it works. You need to understand what a
Yeah.
purchase order is, a payment journal, or
Yes.
whatever, right? And so, was that challenging to learn the application or functional side?
Yes, it was challenging. But the path that I took was I was not from any accounting background. So
Mm-hmm.
I took time to just learn about accounting because to just understand
Oh,
what it means, what an asset is, what a liability is. So
very
because
nice.
when you visit a client, they'll start speaking about, so this is an asset, this is a
Yep.
liability, just the accounting language to understand what they mean when they say I'm debiting, I'm crediting,
Yep.
when they tell you this is our statement of financial position, statement of comprehensive income, because at the same time, okay, at the end of it all, most of the time, they'll just use their terms because they expect you to understand their terms. The
Yep.
most important thing that I learned is now debit and credit in Business Central or in Navision, because an ERP system is mostly a financial system. So understanding that accounting bit made it easier for me now to understand these other bits of this is a fixed asset, you're depreciating it, and all that. Yeah.
Yeah, it's the foundation of what the system is trying to do. So, yep.
Yes.
And I have seen I've been called to fix to try to clean up some integration, for instance, and I can just look at the code, and the person might have been a brilliant C# developer, but they clearly did not understand what a debit and credit were. And they were taking the same account and debiting and crediting the same account. Or they didn't understand that on a credit memo, you reverse the debit and credit. And I'm looking at the code like, this could not have possibly worked ever,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
And
True.
and like, so I saw technical complexity in their code, but I also saw clues that they had no understanding of the accounting transaction they were being asked to work on. So it is an interesting combination that you need a decade or plus potentially of some technical or programming understanding, but you also need business process, you need transactions, you need ERP, and all these little quirks of an ERP system that you have to know both of those, right?
Yeah. True.
So,
Sure.
well,
Yeah,
that's
my dad is an accountant, so I pressured him to teach me.
Dad, I need a
I was
crash
like,
course.
"Hello, okay, I have a new job and I need to learn accounting now."
That's awesome. Was he able to help you there?
Oh, he was so happy to help me because maybe
That's
he felt now I'll
fantastic.
hand over my knowledge of accounting to my kid.
Every father's dream, right?
Yes, yes, yes. Ah, he was really happy.
That
So we
is
were just
so
even
great.
writing down like a phone call or close to an hour, and it was just pretty great.
That's
Yeah,
fantastic. And that's a great story.
yeah,
Very
sure.
cool. So that, I mean, that was an interesting opportunity to chat with your dad, and I'm sure he was thrilled by that.
Very
Uh,
much.
very cool. Well, I found you through your YouTube channel. I
Wow.
I'm an avid consumer of all things YouTube, and I watch all sorts of strange videos, that just pop into the algorithm. And I subscribe to Business Central related. There aren't too many Business Central channels, but I've subscribed to a few.
Yeah.
And one of your videos popped into my feed, and I was like, wait a minute. There's someone else making YouTube videos. So
Yeah.
Eric Hogard makes a bunch of YouTube videos. I make
Yeah.
YouTube videos, and I
Sure.
was like, wait, what is this? Who is this guy? I've never met him. And so I remember I tracked you down on Twitter. I figured out what your handle was, and it's like, hey, let's chat. And we have this user group thing going on. Do you want to participate in that? So, but
Yeah.
your YouTube channel, you have over 100 videos on
Wow.
Business Central development since May of 2021. 100 videos in, let's say, 18 months.
Oh,
That's a
there are
that's a
100.
a
I
hundred. Yeah,
almost
I
lost the
went and
count.
counted them, and
Oh,
that's. I mean, I can totally relate. That is quite an accomplishment. So, first of all, congratulations.
Thank
It
you.
is an amazing library of content that you've created. So, how did you start creating videos? Like what it made you say, "Oh, let me create a YouTube video about Business Central."
Okay, that's an interesting question because the the channel, I wanted to create a YouTube channel at the end of it all, and I knew that I wanted to share knowledge on, uh, let's say, technical knowledge or programming knowledge. At that time, let's say around 2018 or 2019, I was still figuring out what will I share on. But the main inspiration was there's a book by, what is it called? This simple programmer guy. I almost forgot his name. It's known as Soft Skills. The book Soft Skills.
Okay.
If you know it, you're I forgot his name. How comes? Okay. So I read the book Soft Skills, and after, one of the main suggestion on the Soft Skills book was, as a programmer, you should just have your own portfolio. You're either a blog or a YouTube channel where you just store your own things and help other people, because when you teach something, you learn it twice and you just become better
Yes.
at whatever you're doing. So
Wow.
uh, that is back in like 2018 or 2019. I read the book and I internalized. I said, wow, my channel will be ready in a few months. But the process before I did, overthinking, I recorded so many videos just on my laptop and then just left them away.
Yep.
Oh no, this is not ready
Not
for
good enough.
this
Yep.
YouTube. Not good enough. I recorded several on my phone. I'm like, no, still not yet ready. And then when COVID struck, I was like, now this is the time. COVID, and I'll just be at home, working from home. So
Ah.
I'll have the time. But again, I still didn't do as much at that time when there was COVID. But again, the main aim was to learn more through teaching others. So as at now, 2021, that's when I prepared a video. Like the first video was, the serious video was about converting text to AL, I remember.
Okay.
Yeah. And so that video, I think I prepared it for like a month, slowly recorded it,
Yeah.
criticized it. And then one weekend I said, okay, enough of criticism, just post.
Yep.
Just post.
I can totally relate, and I was able to pull this up. Let me see if I can show it.
Yeah.
Let's see.
John
Three.
Sonmez, I remember the name. John Sonmez, a simple programmer. Yeah, I remember the name
And
for soft skills. Yeah.
so this was how I started in 2016. This
Uh-huh.
is my garage because I,
Wow.
I thought I needed a bunch of space, right? And I
Yeah.
thought I needed lights and I needed a green screen to stand in front of. And I thought I needed all of this elaborate stuff. And so this is what I started in. And this sounded terrible. It looked terrible. It took hours to set up, right? And
Wow.
even after hours of setup and recording and retakes and mistakes, right? You're just constantly like, oh, this doesn't, and so you're very self-conscious. So I totally
Yeah, sure.
relate. The first, I think it must have taken me 2 or 3 years to try different things. And I think I only released 1 or 2 videos over that time
Mm.
because you're just trying to figure out what works and how
Yeah,
to do it. So,
sure.
congratulations for sticking with it. I can absolutely relate as to how difficult that initial process is. But once
Yeah.
you get over that hurdle, you
Yeah.
make 2 videos
Good.
and 5 videos and 10 videos, and now you have over 100 videos on YouTube.
Yeah, sure. Yeah.
So, congratulations for getting past those hurdles. That's fantastic.
Yeah,
Um,
thank you.
so, let's see. Uh, you have your Tech Na Masangi YouTube channel. What does that mean? Is there a
Yeah, tech.
translation of that?
Yeah, there is. This is basically tech. Uh, in Swahili, we don't have a C in our language.
Okay.
So we only have K. So like so in Swahili, technology is teknolojia, but with a K,
Ah,
TEK, and technology. So the tech means the technology, and
Got it.
then na is with tech with Msangi.
Ah, okay.
Yeah,
Fantastic. So
yeah.
tech
So
with Msangi.
yes,
Fantastic. That's very
that,
cool.
that's the translation. Tech with Msangi.
Very cool. So you got the channel name, you had the Business Central focus, you pulled it
Yes.
together, you're cranking out videos, you got past that 100 subscriber hurdle so you could get your channel name, right?
Yeah, yeah, yeah. I didn't know
Yep.
that's a hurdle as well when I was
Yep.
starting. And thank you for helping me out share the channel because you are among the people who spread it out and we got to 100 after your tweet. Yeah, so I really
Fantastic.
appreciate that. Yeah.
No, I was excited. Like, oh my gosh, someone else is making videos. That's great. That's great.
Yeah.
Very cool. Well,
Yeah, sure.
once I saw your channel, I reached out to you because we had just, gosh, I don't remember if it was before I found your channel or shortly after. I was on the planning committee for the Dynamics user group, and
Mhm.
we specifically spoke about trying to start user groups or meetups in other countries, other regions, and we were in the United States, and how do we get ones in Europe and Asia? And
Yeah.
um, I saw your channel. I was like, wait a minute, where are you? And I tracked you down and I saw you're in Kenya. And I'm like, hey, do you want to start a user group? And I was
Yeah.
like, you're probably thinking, who is this crazy guy reaching out to you? Like, and because I've had people respond like that, like, no, you're kind of weird. Like, I'm
Mm,
not interested in doing any of this stuff. But you're like, yeah, sign me up. I was like, awesome, awesome.
yeah,
I was
yeah,
I was
sure.
very excited. So I
Yeah.
connected you with Molly and the Dynamics user group,
Yeah.
and you had a Doug meeting, right? You had a Doug
Yes.
meetup.
A
Was that
physical
in
meetup.
Nairobi?
Yes, in Nairobi.
Excellent. How did that
Yeah.
go?
Oh, it was really cool, really cool. We actually dam nicknamed it Njoo Tujuane, like just come and let's meet, let's connect, let's know each other.
Very cool.
And people were really excited. We met and discussed a few plans, what DAG is. Most of them didn't know what DAG is.
Mhm.
And then I got some strangers. Some people just signed up to Meetup and came, and I met them for the first time. So it was very interesting. A few
Very
friends of
cool.
mine, of course, plus now new faces. And so that's how we came up with the Power Platform Bootcamp, which we just did last month.
I saw that on your channel.
Yes, yes. So we agreed that this is an area that most of us are not conversant with, and we'd like to learn more about it. So in July, we planned now for the Power Platform Bootcamp, and come next year, we are planning to have at least one monthly meeting, virtual or physical, at least every other month, January, February. We just choose what a topic and then we have a speaker and then we just do it. Yeah, that's our plan for next
Fantastic.
year.
Well, do you follow Samuel Adranyi on Twitter? He is in
Yes,
Ghana.
I
He is
saw.
he is a power platform genius. When he visited me in LA, he showed me some of the power apps that he created. I often have the question, I understand power apps, they're kind of cool and they're a novelty for me, but he showed me real world practical power apps that he's written for organizations and government agencies in Ghana. I was blown away. And he's doing this over, a week, right? Putting together these power apps. So uh, you should definitely connect with him. You're probably in similar time zones, and he is an awesome expert, and so that would be awesome. So it's interesting you ended up discussing a focus on Power Platform. So that's pretty cool. Of the
Yeah,
of the
sure.
attendees, were they like what type of Dynamics products were they familiar with, or did they use at your meetup?
Most of them were Business Central developers because
Wow,
I marketed through my channel, so
got it.
it was
So they knew
it
you.
was easy to get Business Central developers, and
Got it.
we had a few for Power BI as well. Mostly we had focused
Also
on Power BI.
very, very popular with BC.
Yes, Power BI. So
Very
mostly
cool.
centered on the two technologies. Yeah, for Power Platform, it was just to expand our knowledge. You have not left Business Central aside. It's only
Okay.
that this one was not familiar. We are not familiar with. Let's learn something about it. That's why we wanted to just exploit. Yeah.
Very cool. Well, here, this is a map I pulled from the Dynamics user group website. And
Wow.
on the Dynamics user group website, they have a button, find a local user group. And I have the
Oh.
QR code above there. And I just scrolled over to the African continent. And it looks like, I didn't realize it, it looks like there are two in Nigeria, which I haven't heard who's organizing that. I haven't followed that, but you're obviously leading up the
The
Kenya
one in
group.
Kenya. Yes.
And then Samuel is over here in Accra, in Ghana. And
Mm-hmm.
so we're starting to see some user groups form, which is fantastic. So
Yeah.
thank you very much for getting that started.
Yeah, you're welcome. You're most welcome. And the members are really excited because, it's good to meet together and discuss the challenges that you face in the
Yep.
technologies that you use. And just if you have a question, you just ask on the platform and you get some answers, especially things that relate to you locally. It's very good. Yeah. So informative.
Yes. And I come from working with Dynamics GP in the United States, very US focused. And so we know our accounting, our taxes, our quirky business processes like paper checks. And so we kind of understand our environment. I couldn't
Mm.
tell you the first thing about ERP systems in Italy or France or China or Japan, right? Or Kenya. I like, yeah, I assume you have payables, I assume you have receivables, but
Yes.
I couldn't tell you about the VAT or the taxes or the currencies or
Yeah.
banking or anything like that, right? So I totally agree. There are some country and region specific things that it's very helpful to have. And actually met with someone from South Africa who used Dynamics GP, and he
Mm.
had all sorts of really specific requirements for South Africa because they have data protection requirements. And I'm
Mm.
like, what? And like, he's like, no, we have to do all this stuff just to do your ERP system. And
Mm.
so it was really eye opening to start to see that as someone who's focused for the last, I guess, almost 20 years on GP in the United States. So that's fantastic that you're building a new community in
Yeah.
your area. So
Sure.
okay, so we talked about your YouTube channel, the user group that you're forming, and you mentioned that Business Central is used in Kenya, and you were able to get other Business Central developers to attend your user group.
Yeah.
How would you describe the landscape of Nav and Business Central and other Microsoft products in Kenya? And then I guess if you're familiar with what's going on in Africa, I hear very little, and so I'm not connected to the conversations. Is Business Central popular there? Is it growing? Like what are you seeing?
Um, okay, so there's one thing about Business Central. I have found it to be really specific to the organization that is using. So if a user has ever worked with, there are some users who are really glued to the Nav cycle. Some who started working with it in Nav 09, they went to 2013 with the upgrades, and they came to now 2016, 2018, and now Business Central, depending on the organizations that they have been working on.
Got
So
it.
yeah, for some users, for some people, when you mention it, it's completely new. Like it's okay, they don't know it.
Business Central,
Business Central or
because they're
Nav,
so used to Nav.
yeah, they're so used to Nav, but they
Okay.
know those who don't know, those who know Nav, they know that it's now Business Central.
Okay.
So it's here in Kenya, especially, it's used by mostly mid-sized organizations like the credit unions or SACCOs. For us, we call them savings and credit cooperatives,
Okay.
government institutions, NGOs, universities. Like our university where I was studying, I
Wow.
later came to realize that it was running on Nav. 09.
Wow.
The results a module that we were using at that time had been customized with nav09, and hospitals are also using it. A few
Wow. So
hospitals have had.
it
Yeah,
sounds like it's everywhere.
it's everywhere, basically everywhere.
Wow.
Recently,
Okay.
manufacturing, hotels. I even saw one used by a hotel recently. Yeah. So hotels, and it was even a SaaS version. So I was really excited. Yeah.
Incredible. Very cool. And so it sounds like it's been a very popular ERP system there for many years.
Very popular. Very
Okay,
popular.
excellent.
Mm.
And so is that leading to growth of other Dynamics products? Are you seeing I hate this term, but Microsoft Dynamics 365, whatever that means, like CRM or
And
sales or
the
marketing, are
names and all the
yeah,
names that it involves. Yeah.
exactly. Are customers also adopting the CRM platform or the sales and marketing platforms?
Yeah, they are adopting, but at different speeds, just
Okay.
basing on what they really want to use. And others are just on. They are not even using Business Central, but they use Office 365.
Yep, that makes
So
sense. Right.
there are so many who do that. So many customers who just use Office 365. When you mention any other thing, Dynamics and all that, they don't even understand. They're just on
Got it.
Office 365 and Teams.
Well, and that is interesting. I mean, Office 365 is very much the gateway into the Microsoft ecosystem, right? And
Yeah,
once you know Excel and Word and Outlook, and then you see that, say, Business Central integrates with Outlook and Excel and Word, it becomes this very natural pairing.
yeah, sure.
I haven't used anything like NetSuite or Acumatica, so I don't know how well they integrate, but Business Central is pretty darn good at integrating and Teams as well, right?
Yeah,
So
yeah, sure. Mm, mm,
well, very interesting. So in the US, I was so focused on Dynamics GP, I was vaguely aware of Navision or NAV, but
mm.
I just never really ran into it. I never saw it. I didn't hear much about it. I don't honestly to this day I don't know how big it is relative to GP in the United States. So it
Okay.
wasn't really on my radar. So as I learned more about Navision and Nav and its adoption and usage worldwide, I'm really kind of amazed because
Yeah.
I lived in this US focused bubble, right? So,
Mm,
well, that's very cool. So, one thing you and I have talked about inside conversations are challenges with currencies and pricing models and import exports. And sorry if I can find my button here. How is Microsoft pricing of the Dynamics products received in, say, Kenya? Is it, I know in other countries, just the currency translation just doesn't work. So,
yeah.
what might be considered a bargain in the United States or in the UK can be very expensive if that same price is translated to, say, Indian rupees or Kenyan shilling, right? So, how what is the perception of the Microsoft Dynamics pricing in Kenya?
Okay, so there's first of all, let me start with the SaaS version. So for clients who have been using Nav from 09, they invested, they did is it called the capital expenditure
Got it.
on the servers, they have data centers in the organization.
Yep.
So they are not, most of them are still not yet seeing the value of the SaaS because they still want to see their asset depreciating over time so that they can get the value. And
Yep.
some of them have been actually since you can't, like, if you have now 2016, you cannot be able to add users like license. You can't get, Microsoft has disabled, you cannot be able to add users in that. So if you add new employees, you're not able to add licenses. And there are clients who have really integrated with those old systems with so many connections here and there.
Yep.
And they're like, you guys, this system has not even depreciated enough. I've just gotten, I got it like 3 or 4 years ago or 5 years ago. I want to use
Yep.
it for like 7 to 8 years. So for that line of clients who are so much, they have their data center on-prem. They're just still on-prem,
Yeah.
and they'll just be paying their BREP, and they'll proceed with using the system with the vendors who will help them in customization. But now for these other some clients, it's just dependent on the problem that they want to solve and what value they feel Navision will add, or okay, let me say Business Central will add to their organization, and they can be more open. Like for nonprofits, there is a discount for the pricing, especially the SaaS one,
Okay.
and they are more open to the SaaS version because they are getting the discount per month, and they are really the pricing is not a big problem, especially for nonprofits.
Okay.
But for mid-sized organization, it's kind of a challenge for the SaaS version. Most of them are preferring probably to go in with the on-prem. If they have one small server here, and they can just subscribe for 2 or 3 users and then use the system. Yeah.
Got it. So the SaaS model of the kind of the monthly fee per user, companies are perceiving that as an expensive endeavor.
Yes, yes. A really
Interesting.
expensive endeavor. Yes. When you
Wow.
compare what they have been paying with the on-prem, so and when they go to the SaaS, basing on the fact that they invested on
Yep.
the servers, so they're like, wow, this will be an expensive endeavor as at now. Yes.
That is very interesting. That sounds the opposite, or certainly different than many companies in the United States who say, even though I spent $20,000 on servers and $20,000 on the software, I'm having to pay annual maintenance on that. And even if I'm depreciating it or expensing it or capitalizing it, whatever the case is, they're like, that's a lot of money, a lot of maintenance, a lot of stuff to have on-prem. Whereas if they look at the Business Central price in the United States, I think it's like $70 per user. And if they have 5 users, that's $350 a month. For a US company of several million dollars in revenue, my perception is that is a bargain.
Yes.
And so it is interesting to hear a different perspective that the SaaS model might be less appealing and considered more expensive. That is interesting. Okay.
But when you look at the number of users, so even like let's take an example of US. So if you have maybe now organizations with 100 users, like most government institutions have close to 100 users. When you now go to those numbers of users, then the conversation starts a little bit changing.
Very, very good point. You did have your per user license costs on-prem.
Yes.
But your marginal cost of each additional user, given your infrastructure, might have been lower. Whereas in the SaaS world, there's a constant growth for that user count. And, yes. Okay. So 100 users, that gets pretty expensive.
Yeah, it gets expensive.
Got it. Interesting. So in the US, 100 user installation for Business Central, and same with Dynamics GP, that's a big install in our world in the United States. I think just the average GP site might be 10 users. So it tended to be because those were accounting users, right? Okay. You only needed financials and payables and receivables and sales invoices, and they often used an operational system for their other needs. Whereas perhaps in the Navision world, they had operational systems as part of their customization, right? So the university management system was a customization, right?
Yeah, it was a customization.
Yep. So that might be a difference in the user count. In the GP world, we would rarely have 100 users in Dynamics GP because they don't need to do invoices or payables or whatever. They would use some other system for those things. So, okay, very interesting. That makes a lot of sense.
Yeah, sure.
Okay, so Um, what are your professional interests? Like when you think of Business Central or development or coding, like what are you interested in? What are some topics that you find fascinating or interesting that you like to pursue?
Um, the Okay, that's a kind of wide question. Um, DevOps, let me say, DevOps
Okay,
is really interesting for me,
very cool.
and I really love rapid application development. I'm really interested in that because just reducing the turnaround time with our world, which is really fast.
Yep.
And again, my okay, this is kind of funny because I have an interest in gathering requirements. I really love getting it right. And I really enjoy that process of trying to know what the client really wants. And
Yep.
especially in uh, just before taking up any customization or change request, I really love getting so deep into the requirements, even if it's an organization. Like recently I was doing the HR 360 appraisal. So I even called my friend who is in HR to just have a discussion on what this 360 is all about into
Wow.
detail, to just learn about the processes. Um, and it makes it interesting because I learn about so many uh, other careers, what they do, because for me to be able to help them, I got to learn what they do first. And after that, then I can be able now to integrate it to Business Central. So in terms of the coding, coding always, um, coding is just like a tool that gives us a result. Um, so L will be a tool that will give me the result of what the client wants. So the most important thing that I like focusing on is how will I help the client maybe execute faster in their
Very
processes?
nice.
How will I help them become better, like enjoy using the system? There are these common small things, like when you insert a document, you populate the basic document date for them, keeping it easy for them to fill in information, having default values in their pages that they might be needing every month. Uh, and you find that things that help them save time, they are really interested in. Like if a client usually generates a report at the end of the month, and there is a point where they need to select as at end of the month. So why not repopulate it every time they generate it? If they want to change it, they can change, but we
Right.
repopulate it for them as at end of the month. I have repopulated it for them, and such a thing. And another interest may be personal. I love music. I
Okay, that
even
was my next question. So you love
it's
music.
a,
That's interesting. What does that mean?
a
Listening,
lot.
playing?
Listening and singing also, because
Wow.
I was in the university choir back in university.
Wow. That is awesome. Very cool.
Yeah,
So
that's okay.
do you do performances or bands or groups or
I was in a band at some point. I don't when was it? 2018 or 2019? I was singing in weddings, events, and all that. So it was my weekend hobby
very
after
cool.
developing. Yeah, but I just a little bit paused it, not pulled out completely. And during COVID now, I have a TikTok channel now. It's known as Bango Namsangi. There's a genre. There's a genre for music here. Let me just send it in the chat. Maybe you'll see it. That's the
Okay.
name. So it is the same,
Okay.
uh, a genre for coastal music here in Kenya, known as Bango. So I have a TikTok channel for Bango Namsangi. So in 2020, that is what I was really recording a lot of music on Bango. They are slow and interesting, using traditional instruments. Wow. Yeah. So
Very
interesting.
cool.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's awesome. I
Yeah.
I admit that I looked at TikTok and it does not compute for my old man brain, and it was just this this noise screaming at me from the phone, and I'm just like, okay. I told my kids, I'm like, sorry, I can't do it. I tried. So they're like, no, Dad, you need to, select what you like and follow stuff. I'm like, I just don't have the patience. So yeah, well, that's fantastic. Very cool. So TikTok is for your music and personal stuff. You're not posting Business Central videos to TikTok.
No.
Okay, got it.
TikTok is
Some
not for
people are
Business
trying
Central.
that. Yeah. A Business Central
Just for
TikTok
fun.
tips. Yes. Well,
Yeah.
very cool. Well, thank you very much for joining me. I will definitely be in touch. We're going to talk about Business Central reporting,
Yeah,
and
sure.
because we have a lot to learn there. But thank you so much. Thank you for starting the user group meetups in Kenya. And I mean, fantastic project, and the Power Platform Bootcamp. Happy to connect you with Samuel. He's done some awesome stuff with Power Platform. And so, really, congratulations on your YouTube channel. I know how much work that takes. So, just congratulations. Fantastic job.
Thank you. Thank you also for the support on the YouTube channel. It has been great. Yeah, sure.
No problem. Okay. Well, thank you everyone for watching and joining, and have a good one.